Dr. Roy, I'd like to bring you in here. Yes, we all recognize that there is a vaccine shortage. The government has certain compulsions, but surely we cannot short circuit these scientific and medically proven processes by skimping on life-saving vaccines just because we have a shortage. Now, nobody is suggesting, of course, that Covishield should be treated as a single-dose vaccine. There is talk that the government of India might want to undertake a study of this nature, but even that has caused a lot of outrage. And the argument seems to be that Covishield started out as a single-dose option before efficacy studies recommended 2 shots. So who knows, it may work like Johnson & Johnson and Sputnik Light. Where do you weigh in here?
Neha, I think actually this has already been studied when people started looking at the efficacy of Covishield against the variants of concern, especially the South African variant, the UK variant, and the B1617 Indian variant. It was very clearly found that a single dose of Covishield only provides about 33 to 35% protection with the single dose against the Indian variant, which clearly would tell us that we would lose a lot of protection that we would get against the older versions of the virus. And I believe that even with 2 doses, the efficacy of the Covishield vaccine only comes up to around 60% with the variants of concern, which clearly make up to 70% of the cases in India today. So in my opinion, I think going to a single dose with the Covishield would not work. The second reason behind this is the platform on which the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the Sputnik V or the Sputnik Light are based is a human adenovirus 26, which is the first dose, and then a human adenovirus 5, which is treated as optional. And the response of the body to these viruses is very different than it is to the chimpanzee adenovirus and the construct of the Covishield vaccine. So in my opinion, right now, it does not seem like a good idea for people who have never had the infection before to go with a single dose of the Covishield. It will be better than not having anything, but I don't think it's a good idea to go with a single dose unless we have more data.
Absolutely not a good idea. It will not offer enough protection. It's interesting, Dr. Roy, that you raised that issue of that recent UK study, which talks about how a single dose of vaccine offers only 33% protection against the B1617.2 variant, which is predominant in India. I went through that study. We've done shows on it. But I just want to point out to you and to our viewers that I spoke to Dr. Gagandeep Kang, one of India's top virologists, about this, and she said that perhaps we need to take that study with a pinch of salt because it's not really based on real world data. If we were to examine the real world data more closely, we would find that the efficacy of even a single dose would be higher than 33%, probably closer to the region of 60%. I want to take that to Dr. Roy. Dr. Roy, you know, the New York Times again says that both these studies which they are quoting looked at people who'd been exposed to the coronavirus about a year earlier. Cells that retain a memory of the virus persist in the bone marrow and may churn out antibodies whenever needed. That's something that's been pointed out by Dr. Talolikar. However, the result may not apply to protection derived from vaccines alone because immune memory is likely to be organized differently after immunization compared with that following natural infection. That means people who've not had COVID-19 and have been immunized may eventually need a booster shot. Do you believe it is important to make this distinction that if you've had a COVID infection, then maybe you can hope to have longer lasting immunity, but not if your immunity comes through a vaccine?
Yes, Neha, I think I would agree with that. And it makes a lot of sense from the immunological standpoint, because when you get a naturally acquired infection, your body is exposed to every part of the virus. So most of the vaccines only work via the spike protein, which is only one portion of the virus, but it has a membrane, it has a nucleocapsid, it has many other parts, which are called the non-S proteins. And these non-S proteins are equally important for developing what is called neutralizing antibodies. Most people are measuring general antibody titers. What really needs to be measured is neutralizing antibody titers. And in developing those, a natural infection will always be superior to any vaccine so far available on the market, because though we have the whole cell viron inactivated vaccine like Covaxin or Sinovac, but however, even these cannot completely match the response that you would have from a natural infection. So it is very likely that after such an infection, if a person even got one shot of a vaccination, which has already been studied, and a single dose of the mRNA vaccine after an infection boosts up the immune response 20 to 50 times compared to a person who is infection naive, who's never been infected before. So I think that there is good reason to believe that these may be the people who may get away with just a single dose, for example, of the Covishield or Covaxin.
Okay.
But the people who've never had the infection before will require 2 doses and very likely will require a booster. And I wouldn't be surprised if later on it is decided that after getting 2 doses of Covishield, the booster needs to be of a different vaccine on a different platform, because that will stimulate something else in the immune system and give a much better response. But these are areas that require active research further on.
Absolutely. In fact, many virologists have already pointed out that mRNA vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna are superior to Covaxin and Covishield, which are currently available in India. Therefore, will we need booster doses of those vaccines going forward? I guess we do need more data on this. Though I have to say, on a lighter note, I had never thought that there would be a new study or that doctors appearing on my panel would actually one day make me feel good about the fact that I did get infected with coronavirus, because now we're suddenly talking about how naturally gained immunity is so much more robust than the immunity that you get through a vaccine. Though I'm still not sure I'd be happy with just one jab. I'm pretty sure that I would want those 2 jabs, and let's hope it stays that way. The government of India does not make it difficult for us to get those 2 jabs. That's on a lighter note, but some tough questions. Even though we may want to draw comfort from this new study that's come out, it has been pointed out by doctors at the panel that everybody has a different immune response. And surely a finding like this is not likely to apply to people who have, let's say, compromised immunity. We've had cases of reinfections. We've had unfortunate cases of even people, especially doctors, dying even after 2 doses of vaccine. So we need to approach this very cautiously. Do you agree with Dr. Shah that, what might work in another country, let's say the US or the UK, may not necessarily work here in the Indian conditions?
I would 100% agree with the fact that immune responses to both vaccines and to infection vary from individual to individual, and there's no single one type of response because there are so many factors that go into that immune response. Clearly, elderly individuals may not respond the same way as youngsters would. Clearly, a person who's on immunosuppressive drugs, such as a transplant patient or a patient who's undergoing cancer chemotherapy or having blood dyscrasias, would not behave like anyone else. And similarly, people, I have known doctors who got the infection in the first wave. They had 2 doses of the vaccine and again got the infection in the second wave. And both of the cases were moderate cases, not mild cases. So I think there is no uniformity. Nobody should live in complacency that just because I got the infection and now this study came out, I'm safe. Nobody should be in the complacency. I got my 2 doses, so I'll never catch the virus again. I think this virus is really teaching us a lot of lessons to take care of ourselves, our diet, our lifestyle, our overall health. And I believe that we do need local data on how our patients here are behaving, and especially how the responses to both. We have a lot more data for Covishield from around the world, but we don't have as much for Covaxin.
That's
so
correct.
I think we need a lot more data in the public domain that we can all analyze and study and be much smarter about how to protect ourselves and everyone else.
Absolutely. On that note, I'd like to thank Dr. Roy for joining us on the show, and thanks to the viewers for watching.